Hey guys, I'm here with Robbie Wheaton from Wheaton Arms, and we were just doing a YouTube live event, and we were in violation of some obscure policy and who knows what. It might have been something we should have known, but anyway, our live stream was shut off immediately.
They pulled the plug on
They
us.
just pulled the plug. I mean, they just went, we went,
Night, gentlemen.
So one of the things we wanted to do, because number one, we wanted to let you guys know what happened, because that video is gone. We can't even upload it. But one of the big things we were talking about was the things you need to do to your go-to rifle. Now, we had an AR sitting here. We decided we were going to just be safe and go under, policy. So what we want to talk about is 5 things that you need to have on your basic AR-15 rifle for your go-to rifle. And when I say AR-15, again, I want to say that, this could be your AK, could be your FAL, could be, an M1A, whatever, a number of different things. And then we're going to look at 5 additional things that will help you to improve a lot of the capability. And then we're going to look at parts that you might need to replace, some parts that you may need to have on hand. Robbie, being a gunsmith for over 20 years, he has seen a lot of AR-15s come through his shop, plus just personal experience we've had shooting for a long time. Also, we're going to talk about ways to carry your magazines, because that's another part that's very important. So first off, we want to start out with the 5 things that you need to make sure that you have on your rifle before you have anything else. And number 1 is a sling. Have a sling for your rifle, and we're not going to get into particular slings. I have a Magpul sling here, and just one of them, but there's a ton of really good quality slings. You can do your research, or at this point right now, just get what you can find. But and there's a lot of different systems. You can go with QD, you can strap it through the stock, you can do a lot of things. That's beside the point. You need to have a sling, and there are 2 major reasons. Number 1 is, of course, if you're walking around with your rifle after a while, it just is heavy. And so, like for me, I went to an event one time, forgot my sling, I was walking around, it was a nightmare. I mean, it really was. And I was having to carry my rifle, I was having to set it down. Listen, in a situation where there's a self-defense situation, you do not want to have to set your rifle down. You want to be able to get hands-free. You can sling it around. When you're walking, you've got it strapped to you. The second thing that's just as important is its retention. You've got it on you. Nobody can take it away from you, like we saw in Kenosha. The sling is what saved Kyle from having that rifle pulled from him. So that is the 2 things about having a sling, and it is honestly the number 1 thing. A sling is on your rifle. Sometimes people are like, oh, this is a pain, I'm going to take it off. Have your sling available. Now, number 2, while an optic is really great, backup sights. Backup sights, because there's a lot of things that can go wrong with your optics, even though there's some really strong optics out there.
Yes.
But we've been through those situations.
I broke them. I have put one on my PCC carbine, put less than 100 rounds through it, and broke one of the lenses on the inside of the scope, and complete failure.
Right.
And without backup irons, I'm totally the rifle is totally useless at that point.
Right. And if you have a red dot, your battery runs dead. I mean, there's a lot of things. Now, scopes again are made pretty rugged. But a 2, sometimes, and we've been there before, we've been at the range and gone, man, this thing's erratic, and realized that we didn't have the scope tightened down, the mount tightened down. And that puts your zero way off. So having backup iron sights in a critical situation, to me, is like super important. Now, those are the 2 additions to the rifle itself. But another thing you need to think about is extra magazines. You need to have at least 6 extra magazines, 1 in the rifle, 6 in the back. It's amazing to me when people tell me that they have an AR, and I ask them, I say, well, how many mags do you have? And they say, well, I got a couple. You need to have extra magazines.
Well, in most rifles, when you buy an AR, it comes with 2. And that's a lot of times that's all that people will have are those 2 magazines that came with the rifle.
That's right.
So, but yeah, you're right. You definitely need at least 6 plus the 1 in the rifle, 7 total, and that's if you've got what I would call standard capacity 30-round magazine clip thingies.
Those magazine clip things.
Yeah. Yep.
And whether you get the steel, you get the Magpul, and right now they're running some pretty good specials on Magpul magazines. I mean, I think they were 10 for $120 or so.
10 for about $120 I saw yesterday.
At Palmetto State Armory, they have a big bin of different steel magazines, and I think they were like running $9.95 a piece. So get your magazines. Now, if you can get more, but at least 7. The other thing is a bird cage or some kind of flash hider. Thank you. Some kind of flash hider, because I run cops a lot of times on my rifles, but they do put out a lot of fire, a lot of concussion on the side,
Yep.
especially like on the inside.
That's right. May not be the best thing to use if you're in a CQB environment, if you're using it to defend your home. You know, in those enclosed spaces, you get a muzzle brake, and the concussion is tremendous on the inside of an enclosed space. If you've ever shot through in a 55-gallon drum that had the end cut off, and you shove your rifle in there and try and shoot, the concussion that comes out of that it's bone jarring. You know, you can feel it in your sinuses.
Right.
And shooting inside a house is very similar to that, because it's an enclosed space. And the overpressure from the muzzle brake is very uncomfortable.
Right.
So,
But also the flash hiding capability, if
Yep.
you're out, you don't want this big flame coming out the side. You're going to be identified
That's
really
right.
fast at where you're firing from. So a good flash hider, most rifles come, just with the A2 birdcage.
Right.
But there are a lot of others that are even more advanced, but you can do your research. But having a light, especially at night,
right.
having a light, and that is a big one. That's a big one, because you want to be able to identify your target, especially if you have other people in your home. I got up the other night. There was a disturbance. Our driveway alarm went off. There was something going on. The dogs were barking. So I come out, and Shannon goes, I heard a noise. And I came out, and I had my rifle, and then I'm looking, and all of a sudden I see something, and it's my son, Grant. And he came out to see what was going on. So you need to, and it was dark. So you need to make sure. I wasn't shining it on him. I actually had a separate flashlight, because I was not in red, or in code red right then. I was still, in orange. So I was shining my light, and I got him with it. So here's the thing, guys. A light is super important for your rifle, especially in a home defense situation.
Mm-hmm.
So I just wanted to make sure we hit that. And then last but not least of the first five is your ammunition. And guys, I know ammunition is it is, not only is it hard to find, but when you do find it, it's expensive.
That's right.
We've been posting things on Facebook saying, hey, this is a source for ammunition. And guys are laughing and fussing and complaining. You know what? It just is what it is. The ammunition is just gone up because it's supply and demand. So look for your ammunition.
That's
Get on
right.
AmmoSeek, and that's all I'm going to say. AmmoSeek is a great source for finding ammunition. So that is one place that you can look, and I'm not affiliated with them. I just wanted to kind of mention that.
Yep.
Okay, so those are your first five basics. So you have your flash hider, your sling, your magazines, you have your ammunition, and then you have your backup iron sights. Those, if nothing else, those are going to get you through. But now to move it up to your basic improvements
That's
to
right.
give you better accuracy, just for the rifle to perform better.
Yep. So your next five for me, a free float handguard with Picatinny rail on the top, and either M-lock or key mod or some other attachment points on the at 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and 9 o'clock, where I can move rails around and put rails on it where I want. That's one of the huge things for me. I'm a big fan of the free float handguard. It isolates the barrel. It lets the rifle be more accurate, because now nothing's touching the barrel, nothing's disturbing the barrel, which can shift your point of impact. And then it allows you with a Picatinny rail where you can add different accessories to it and put them where you want them.
Right.
The second thing for me is a really good trigger. I use a couple of different companies' triggers. I prefer a single stage, but personal preference, single stage, 2-stage, something in the 3-pound range for a battle rifle, for a defensive rifle, CQB rifle. That is really kind of the go-to weight that I look for, is something in that 3.5 pound range.
Right.
The next thing for me is an ambidextrous safety. I'm left-handed, so it allows the firearm to be much more user-friendly for me being left-handed. But doing transition drills from strong side to weak side, I can still manipulate all of my controls on the rifle with the ambidextrous safety, taking it off safe with my thumb, putting it back on safe with my index finger. Doing mag changes, it gets my finger off the trigger to put the safety back on. If I'm moving, I flip the safety on with my index finger, and I'm moving, and then I can just flip it back off with my thumb.
Right. Now, one thing we've done with a lot of training is sometimes you have barriers, and you're getting behind a barrier. If you're right-handed and you're getting across a barrier and it's on the right, you're exposing yourself. So you want to shoot from the weak side to minimize your exposure.
That's right.
And so that's another thing, and having that safety on and off. I mean, because we've done a lot of training with that, and there are times where that's really critical.
Yep, absolutely. And then if you're running an optic on your firearm or not, the ambidextrous charging handle is for me, I think, a critical piece. It allows you to clear jams. It allows you to cycle the rifle, charge the rifle, empty the rifle, clear the rifle. Just any kind of weapon manipulation that you need to do to the bolt of that rifle is so much easier with a good ambidextrous charging handle.
And your gross motor skills, because that's a lot of times you're down to that where your motor skills are off.
That's right. From stress and adrenaline, having that big lever on the side to grab to charge the rifle, it just makes the rifle so much easier to use. And then finally, for me, a low-powered variable optic, something in the 1 to 6 power range is what I prefer. It can have illumination or not. I'm kind of indifferent about that. I want it to be a first focal plane scope. I want it to be a etched glass reticle.
Yeah.
So there's fewer things on the inside of the scope to fail.
Right.
It just makes it a tremendous user-friendly platform. So I can put it on 1x, I can shoot it both eyes open like it's a red dot. I can dial up magnification if I need to make a precision shot at distance. So it just gives you a lot of flexibility.
And one thing that and we're both a big fan of is the ACSS reticle system by Primary Arms. I mean, it is one of the best reticle systems, if not the best, out there for a combat reticle.
I agree.
And Primary Arms scopes are great. I'm a big fan of those guys. I have been for a long time. So I just wanted to add that. But if you're running a red dot, even if you have a pistol, if you're running just a red dot, we hit 300-yard man-sized targets all day long, no problem.
Yeah.
So,
and one of the things we were talking about earlier before we got completely shut down was, if you've got a rifle scope that has mil dots in it, pretty much any center fire rifle that you have, if you zero that rifle at 100 yards, if you hold 1 mil high, that's going to be your aiming point for 300 yards, and that holds true with almost any center fire rifle. So you're going to be about a mil. You're going to need to hold a mil high to make a hit at 300 yards with a 100-yard zero.
Right, and it's easy to compensate. I know a lot of you guys don't necessarily have the ability to go to a range over 100 yards.
Right.
And so, but I'm really you just go from you just aim up a little higher on the target and you're ringing it. Okay, so those are the top 10. We got the first 5. Those are the most critical. We bring in the second that are going to give you better efficiency, more advantage.
Enhanced performance.
Right. That's what I was actually thinking of that. I'm glad you said that. That's why I have Robbie here. Robbie's just awesome. So those are some important elements to have. Now, guys, we're talking about your go-to. We're talking about the rifle that you're depending on. And it's just an important thing to have those things put together. Now, another thing that's extremely important as well is, and a lot of guys have these, but sometimes, and guys, there's a lot of new AR-15 owners out there.
Yes.
So we're gonna pull this out. Now this is the extreme. This is honestly, I'm gonna tell you, this is a plate carrier. A lot of people are like, I'm not putting that on. I understand. I mean, it's kind of, you put this on and walk down Main Street, and people are gonna look at you funny. There's no doubt about it. But this is one of the best ways, especially if you've got some armor in here. But to have your magazine pouches right here. You've got, and it's really just load bearing. It's being able to have your magazines instead of stuck all over in your pockets and searching for them. You've got them right there where you can get to them. Now, I would say that typically, and this is full on. I mean, this is full on for sure. But I would recommend possibly just some kind of battle belt and having your belt, a good sturdy nylon belt. There's a lot of different ones out there.
Yeah.
One thing that we were talking about before we got shut off is the, we're going to keep mentioning that, is Robert from US Grunt Gear makes what they call the Infidel War Belt. And it's a little bit of a padded belt that has a Velcro interior belt, and then you put that over and then it locks. It is a sturdy system.
Well, and not only that, it keeps your gear from shifting around on your waist.
Right.
So if you have to go prone, you don't want your magazine pouches moving around at the front, and you have to go prone, and then they're pushing up in your stomach and your diaphragm, and they're uncomfortable. You want to keep everything from your hip line back.
Plus, you know where things are.
That's right.
Here's my med kit. That's another part of it. You've got your standard mag pouches, but you also have your trauma kit. In fact, we've been talking about this already. We've been going through it. We were going through it for 45 minutes before we got shut off. But we just felt like this was some important information. There were a lot of people asking questions too, so we wanted to make sure we could get some of that taken care of with this. But a good trauma kit with a cat tourniquet or other real high quality tourniquets.
That's right.
And then some compression gauze, some hemostatic gauze, to stop the bleeding. And there are a number of different things you can get, but one of the sources that we use, especially for that, is Medical Gear Outfitters, which is Skinny Medic. And I got on his website the other day. I needed to pick up a couple of extra kits, and I just went over there and ordered them. And Dietrich and I have been friends for 20 years, and he said, "What the heck? I would at least give you a discount." And I said, "I didn't care. I just wanted the kits." But he's great to deal with, and the prices actually are really good. I was doing some comparison anyway, and I was like, "Oh, these are definitely the ones I want." So,
and like we were saying, one of the big things is having that kit in a consistent location on your belt. If you've got multiple belts, having all of your kits set up in the same place, because there's nothing worse than trying to reload a medical kit into your AR when it runs dry.
Right. But there, you can take a standard nylon belt and put magazine pouches on.
That's right.
A good knife. A good knife is important to have on there as well. There's a lot of things, and then you can go to the moon. You can get your multi-tools and all your other stuff.
Like anything, you can go as extreme with it as you want. But you definitely need, at a minimum, magazine pouches for your handgun and for your long gun, a medical kit, and a good knife.
Right.
And those are I think the items that you need that are very, very specific to a belt that you must have on all of your belts.
Right. And guys, honestly, this is a Minuteman kit. That's what it is. It's a Minuteman kit. And that's what America was founded on, and that's what we still are. We still are. Okay, so now let's talk about some of the things that go wrong with the rifle. Again, Robbie has been a gunsmith for over 20 years. And then he and I just we've experienced a lot of stuff. In fact, we just had a failure and we had to work on it.
Yep.
But Robbie, tell us some of the things that you've seen. First off, couple of number 2 and 1 and 2 and 3 things.
So, especially with the AR platform, which is we'll call it America's rifle right now. And that's the rifle that the majority of people in this country, if you're going to own a rifle, that's probably one of the rifles that you do own. And one of the biggest things that we see are guys that come into the shop and they're like, "Hey, I bought this rifle. It's been running great for the last 3 years. I haven't had any problems with it. Now all of a sudden I take it to the range and I get failure to extract, I get failure to eject, I get stovepipes, I'm getting bolt over base jams with it. I mean, just the whole gamut, And they're like, "I don't know what's wrong with it. I've tried cleaning it, I've tried oiling it, and then it'll run for a little while and then it goes right back to doing the same thing again." And it's generally on an AR platform, there's 2 things that I look at to identify all of those problems right off of the bat. The first one is the gas rings and the bolt carrier group.
And let's see how we identify that.
Yep.
If you take a regular bolt carrier and you put it on a flat surface, I can't put it on the table right now. If it remains standing, that means that your gas rings are fine.
That's right.
If you put it on the table and it does this, that means you need to change out your gas rings. In fact, I just finished doing that same thing for mine.
Yep. And, one thing that I've had a lot of problems with over the years are guys will buy a rifle from, A, B, C manufacturer, doesn't matter. And instead of the rifle having the 3 individual spiral lock gas rings in it, or 3 individual gas rings in it, it has what's called a spiral lock gas ring, which is a single piece ring. Those single piece rings, I found, they don't seal up nearly as well as the 3 rings, and you end up getting jams because there's so much gas blow by that the rings aren't sealing up and the rifle function properly. So if you've got a rifle that has one of the single spiral lock rings in it, I would recommend replacing that with the 3 individual rings. They are much, much more reliable.
Okay.
If the bolt carrier group, everything's good with that, the gas rings, it stands up, it passes that test, the next thing that I look at is the gas tube itself. And on the end of the gas tube, there's a little flare. And that flare, what tends to happen is as the bolt cycles back and forth, it goes into the gas tube, into the key on top of your bolt. And it wears that tube slightly every time you shoot it. And 9 times out of 10, it doesn't wear it at 6 o'clock. So when you turn the rifle over and look in there, you can see it. You're like, "Oh, it's wearing out. I need to replace it." Generally doesn't happen that way. It normally wears it at 12 o'clock on the top, where you can't see it. So you flip your rifle over, you look in there, you're like, "Oh, my gas tube looks fine. The little flare's there. Everything looks good. It's just like it's supposed to." Guess what? It's probably worn on the top. And it's allowing gas to blow by because it's not sealing anymore, and now you're getting the gun short stroking, and you're getting a lot of inconsistent operation with it, where the gun jams with different types of jams. Gas tubes and gas rings, I generally replace those about every 3,000 rounds on my rifle.
I better get going.
Yeah. That's a little bit ahead of what the preventative maintenance schedule is on those parts. But listen, this is my go-to rifle. This is the rifle that I'm going to pick up if SHTF. This is the rifle that I'm going to have, and I want everything to stay and remain in tip-top shape on that firearm.
That's right.
gas rings and gas tubes. It's cheap insurance to keep your rifle running.
Okay, so what other parts that you find that typically?
Every now and then I'll see a gas key that fails or gets a lot of wear.
And make sure you check your gas key, because sometimes I've had one time it was just loose.
That's right.
Right here.
Yep. Yeah. So the gas keys wear. That's a pretty common failure part. Firing pins. The firing pin retaining the little cotter key that retains the firing pin, those will break, and generally it's just one leg will break, and it floats back and forth and will end up gouging your receiver and can cause some pretty significant scarring on the inside of your receiver. And then I see, especially on like some of the 7.62x39s or the 6.5 Grendels, or some of the bolts that have a thinner bolt face, the lugs shearing off of the bolt. I've seen it on 5.56, I've seen it on the Grendels, I've seen it on pretty much all of the calibers.
That's that bolt face right there.
Yep, the little star here. And what'll happen, it'll break one of the ears off, generally around the extractor. And then if I still haven't identified the problem, still looking, what I'll do is I'll take the bolt out and I'll grab the bolt in my hand like this where the carrier pin key goes through, and I'll flex it and look to see if there's a crack in it. Do it this way, turn it over, do it the other way. I've seen the bolts crack right around that carrier key.
Right.
And it's right in there. And what happens when it cracks, everything, the gun cycles fine, looks fine, all the tests, passes all the tests, everything passes, but when you shoot it, that bolt flexes and it causes it to bind inside the barrel extension and it won't unlock properly.
Right.
So you get a lot of the same jams.
Right.
The other, a couple other little things, if you're having issues, any kind of jams or like the trigger doesn't work, sometimes you'll get a high pressure round, you'll blow a primer out of a case.
Right.
And the primer can get hung up in your trigger group. If you get a primer hung up in your trigger group, either the hammer won't cock or the trigger, you can't pull the trigger because it gets wedged up under the trigger, either the front or the rear. So either you can't pull it or it won't reset. And at that point, you generally have to take the gun apart and clean it out.
Right.
One of the other big issues that I found is, once again, with primers blowing out and getting stuck inside the barrel extension.
Right.
And I've seen that on like the Ruger Precision rifles as well. It's with the Ruger Precision rifles, especially with the Hornady, the little polymer tipped ammo. The polymer tip, because it's got a steep feed ramp, can sometimes snap off when you go to chamber a round. And it's got a barrel extension in there. Well, you go to close the bolt, and the bolt won't close because it's got that little hard plastic piece in there that prevents the lugs from closing on the bolt.
Right.
So, and ARs will do the same thing. You'll get a primer hung up in the barrel extension sometimes, and the bolt just won't close.
Right.
But those are really the biggest, most common things that I see with the ARs as far as common failures.
Right.
And with the ammunition thing, as hard and as scarce as it is to get right now, and these companies are pumping it out, that the quality standards are probably not where they were a year ago.
That's true. That's a good point. That's a good point.
That's always going to be something to look for. If you start having jams, all of a sudden the rifle won't go into battery. Is a good chance you could have blown a primer out and you've got a primer hung up in your barrel extension. One
thing too you want to kind of check is make sure that the tension on your springs is good. It's great to have just extra, but now let me just say, just like everything else, it's getting more and more difficult to find those extras.
Mm-hmm.
So guys, just be on the lookout. Sometimes you can find things here and there. I mean, here's the thing, guys, production has not stopped on any of this.
That's right.
They are on full blow. I mean, everybody they're putting it out like crazy. So timing is the biggest thing for a lot of these things, whether it's ammo, it doesn't matter. The timing, though, is the big thing because they're putting this stuff out. It's out there. People are just buying it up. And so I know, in fact, we have a buddy of mine, Dave River. He's watching us right now. And, of course, we have Sarah Mack over here because we were doing our live a minute ago. And Dave
until YouTube pulled the plug on us.
Yeah, they pulled the freaking plug, and no explanation pretty much, just did it. But that's okay. We're going to put this information out. That's the big thing. But Dave was with me last night on Patreon Live along with Thad Richardson. We had a big time out here, but we do that every Monday night for just our patrons, and we have a big time. So he and I are getting ready to go up to Palmetto State, and we were going to do some range time, but since it's raining, we're just going to do the second best thing. But I'll tell you guys, right now, parts and availability and ammunition and those things, it's just scarce, and so you've got to be creative, and you've got to just look around and see what you can find. So anyway, guys, we just wanted to get this out and want to get it out quick because I know a lot of people are just sitting there going, what the heck happened?
Yeah.
And we wanted to make sure we could, talk to you guys. And two, Robbie and I have withdrawals if we don't do Facebook or YouTube Live at least once a week, you know. So
we had such a great show going too.
It was good.
And then all of a sudden YouTube pulled the plug on.
But you know what? We had a practice run, and then we were able to come and do this.
We did. Hey, and pretty much we just shot this whole thing in one take, so it flowed pretty well. It wasn't as fluid as the first take with the live, but it hasn't been terrible.
No, it's been good. One thing I do want to say is, guys, is if you don't have legal protection and you're carrying a firearm, USCCA is my choice. Been that way for 4 years, and I really wanted to do it way before then. I just put it off. Don't put it off. Get some kind of legal protection. United States Concealed Carry Association. We'll have a link down below in the description. You can click on it. But whether you go with USCCA or a number of others, it doesn't matter. I think it's just super important that you get some kind of legal protection.
That's awesome. USCCA?
What'd I say?
USCCA?
USCCA. United States Concealed Carry Association. So anyway, we really appreciate Robbie for not only going through the live, but then doing a second edition. And we really appreciate you guys for coming and watching as usual. But we do a live on Facebook from 12 to 1 Eastern Time. And I'll say Eastern because whether it's Eastern Daylight or Eastern Standard Time, we do a Facebook Live. And you can watch it even later if those times don't work for you. And then we try to do some YouTube Lives. And we get shut down. But we have done YouTube Lives as well. But every Tuesday at 12. We're usually here doing something and just trying to get information out. And that's the reason why we wanted to do it on YouTube, because we felt like that these are some critical elements that we need to look at. So again, we really appreciate you guys for being here. And guys, I'm going to tell you what, it's not just firearms. You need to get yourself prepared, whether it's food, water, your medical, self-defense, those things. Guys, we've seen it already, and this isn't fear-mongering. This is just watch the news, and hopefully it'll inspire you to get prepared. So be strong, be of good courage. God bless America. Long live the Republic.
And it wouldn't have been so bad if they wouldn't have just killed our live.
It was going so good. That's what really irks the crap
Less than 20 minutes left. Less than 20 minutes and it would have been done.
Yeah.
No.
This has got to come on. Turn that back on.
Okay. Button on the bottom.
See, I need all
That's why we're here.
I need
Let's do
these.
it. Let's do
Like
it.
the king, I can't even do that. Could you please get my water? I can't. Oh, I need my AR-15 magazines loaded, please. Could you pull the trigger? Okay.
Need a powdered wig next.
And a mole right here. All right, guys, I'm here with Robbie Wheaton from Wheaton Arms. We were just doing a face. I'm here with Robbie from Wheaton Arms. gun deals, gun pro deals. Wheaton Facebook. I mean, you guys give me too many options.
Just don't say Hornady.
Hornady. See, it does this, and it kind of goes in like this. It's the story of my life.
Have you been drinking margaritas?
Not yet, but I'm going to be drinking one in a little bit.
Yes.
Those FMers. Okay.
Do you want me to turn it off and turn it back on?
I'm still angry, honestly, is part of it. Okay. I should be. I've been violated. You think you've been violated? I've been violated. Leave it over.